In this session, we will review how Kanbans are used to establish pull scheduling in production. And our learning objectives are to describe how Kanbans are used to realize the pull system by controlling material flow in production and by following the downstream demand. We want to understand how Kanbans limit the work in progress in the production, and finally briefly discuss the benefits and challenges in extending a JIT pull system to suppliers. So as we saw in a pull system, processes are triggered by a replenishment signal from a downstream operation, and only upon withdrawal of material from inventory are the preceding processes authorized to start processing. This pulls the material through the process. The furthest resource downstream will follow the tact of the customer demand and relay this information upstream so that you have a transferal of this customer demand signal step by step through the production. Now, one well-known way to implement this, and one of the buzzwords of lean production, is Kanban. The classic Toyota pull system is associated with a Kanban approach to decentralized production scheduling. Kanban literally means visual card. A Kanban card is attached to a part with the part's ID number written on it. And it may contain additional information such as the name of the supplier if it's a supplied part, or the location of stores if it's an item from storage, or where that part is needed, and so on. And often the Kanban is placed in the bottom of a container. And when the material in the container is used up, then the card is taken out and inserted on the side of the container. Now, in a Kanban system, when parts are removed from inventory location by a receiving production step, the receiving workstation sends a signal to the sending workstation to initiate, as we said before, a replenishment of the stock. And this is done via the posting of a Kanban card of the product withdrawn from stock. The sending workstation then is authorized to produce the missing parts when it has the authorization in the form of a Kanban card from the receiving workstation and the required parts from its own supplier workstations. Now let's see a simple example of a single card Kanban to see how the Kanban is used to control the flow of materials. Here we have two steps from our pull system, step 3 and 4, where step 4 is our downstream step, closer to the end demand. Step 4 is using input material from the container being emptied here in order to complete its production. Now, you've noticed this looks a little bit different than the sketch we had before. We have space here allocated in front of step 4 for the input material. Call it the input store. And we also see here at the output of step 3, we have space allocated for output store for the produced material from step 3. Now here we only have one container at each of these input and output stores, but of course you could have more. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So now, what we've seen, step 4 is finished its production, and the input container to step 4 is empty. Or you could have the case where it falls to a reorder level. So there needs to be a signal passed to step 3 to replenish the input material. This is done in the form of a Kanban. The Kanban card is passed then backwards, asking step 3 to send materials. What you notice here is that there's no materials available at step 3. It also has an empty container. So the Kanban sends the card authorizes the production, assuming here that we have the inputs available for step 3, and step 3 starts to fill up its container. Now, once that container is full, the Kanban card is attached, and then this Kanban card, this container with a Kanban card, can be moved over to step 4, where the full container then is ready for production, and step 4 can start its production. Now, the original Toyota production system used a dual card Kanban system, and this is actually used a lot. It's a very widely used method of Kanban control. So production cards are then used at a single work center. And these are used to identify the required parts and to complete production runs. Move cards, on the other hand, then, are used to move parts from the outbound stock point of a sending station to the inbound stock point of a receiving station. And of course, there's a huge variety of Kanban types. These are described in detail in some of the suggested references for this course. We can't cover them here, but we've seen in this short sketch how a Kanban controls the production and the material flow using pull. Now let's look at the other important role Kanbans play, inventory control.